Hello, and welcome back to Pop Culture Yearbook. Yet again, we are finishing up 1994 today with a special bonus content episode. We are going to talk about the movie Clerks, which was submitted by our good friend and collaborator Dave. But this movie is important and memorable to all of us. I'm your host, Brad.
I'm Pete.
And as usual, with 1994, we have...
Hey, I'm the GIF.
There he is. What do you think, GIF? Are you going to come back and do this again, or have we overworked you? Where are you at on the whole idea of future episodes?
I will do any and all episodes that you would like me to do. I absolutely love doing this. This is so much fun to do the research, find little nuggets of things that you think you really knew a lot about, and then you find just these little things about these great subjects.
Well,
And
there
it's
you
fun
have
to
it.
relive. It's fun to relive the stuff.
We might have a new permanent guest eventually along with us.
Yay!
All right. So anyway,
we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, where do we fall on that?
Right.
Little background on the movie Clerks. So Clerks is just a classic, low budget. Was shot for only $27,000 in black and white in the convenience and video stores where the director Kevin Smith worked. I'm not going to lie, I'm reading this right off of Wikipedia, but it was a great little just short synopsis of what I was looking for. So he worked there in real life, used it, and I think Pete will probably mention like some notes about like why they had to have the shades down and stuff. So I'll save that for later. But it shows you how they worked around their real life to get this done. Upon its theatrical release, the film received generally positive reviews and grossed over $3 million, which is not very much, but maybe more than I would have even thought, launching Kevin Smith's career. It is considered a landmark in independent filmmaking and deemed it in 2019. It was selected for the preservation in the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress, who deemed it culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant.
Wow.
So there you have it. You want to know why we're talking about it? I just told you why right there. And it's funny as shit. So
let me just start
off.
off.
Try to keep our explicit content out, but we might not be able to do that with this episode.
It's going to be.
That's exactly what I was just going to say. So I'll throw a disclaimer out there that we don't know how this episode is going to go. It's not scripted, but there might be some
that part I
explicit
just read,
content.
which is very scripted.
So if you have small children around, you might want to put earmuffs.
It's not going to be that bad, but there are certain lines that I have to refer to where you just can't help but keep them as
right. The subject matter lends itself to more of an adult content.
Correct.
So I'm just going to start and say like my first memory of this movie, and then we can go around and talk about it from there. So I read Entertainment Weekly. I love entertainment and magazines and finding things. Like I mentioned with music, I love finding bands and things I don't know. So I had read about this movie. I don't remember exactly where, but I had heard of it because even though it was very small, it was getting a lot of word of mouth, and like it was one of those movies. It didn't take long for people to hear about, and so you probably didn't see it in the movie theater, but once it was out on video, I mean, it's pretty common. And if you're in college at the time, I mean, everybody's watching this. Mm-hmm. But the first time I saw it, unless I'm completely wrong, which I rarely am when it comes to memories, was the one time I mentioned in the last episode. My brother moved to Canada. He lived in Nova Scotia for 2 years. And I remember visiting one time, and this was in 1995, but I visited him, and we went to get a movie to watch one night while I was there, and he had heard of it too, or maybe he just heard what I said, but he's up for like indie small stuff like that. And so we rented it and we watched it, and I remember just laughing my ass off for the whole movie. And then the second time, and then it felt cool. It felt like I'm cool now that I've seen this movie. I needed to see that movie because now I'm a part of something. The second time I saw it, I remember I was working at Best Buy in college, and I came back to my dorm room one night, and this is my sophomore year, and I was living with my friend Dave, who I just mentioned. And Dave did not drink in high school, and he did not drink much in college at first. But he had started by this time, and I walked in from work, and him and a couple people are sitting around watching Clerks, and there is just liquor everywhere. And I know of two situations where Dave's been as drunk as anybody as he's ever been, and that was one of those 2 nights right there. He had to go home to Fargo the next day, and I know it was a very tough trip for him to. I don't think he was driving, but he rode with somebody, and it was just tough being in the car and getting home. But when I walked in and saw, because it was still early in the year, and I knew Dave and we were friends, but when I walked in and saw them watching that movie, I was like, yes, these are guys I can hang out with. We are going to have a fun time tonight. And so I specifically remember kind of where I started watching Clerks, and from there, I mean, I must have watched it another 20 more times after that with other people along the way. So that's why I'm glad we're talking about it. Somebody want to take over?
Yeah, I don't remember specifically the first time that I ever saw the movie, but I do remember watching it almost weekly, especially sophomore year in college, which would have been 95, 96. Just having it on, no matter what was going on. Usually we would put it on before we're going to go out to the bars or whatever, or out to parties, that kind of thing. It was just a staple for us. We would always be repeating repeating all the lines to each other. We had a whiteboard in our apartment where we would consistently write lines from the movie, particularly in a row.
That's awesome.
Which we'll talk about, which is our favorite line from the movie. But yeah, just how different of a movie it was. Just black and white, doesn't look like it should be any good at all. It's not high quality by any means, but it's just funny, and it hit us at that perfect age where we're college kids figuring life out, just like they are in the movie. They're a little bit older, but it also related, Brad, back to your days at the corner store, working at a convenience store.
So I mentioned I was at Best Buy. So I'm working in retail, much bigger business than these places, but I'm in retail with these customers that I can't stand. And I had spent my entire high school and summers at a convenience store, and so I could just totally relate to it. And we rented videos. So even though it's a video store separate, like we rented videos, people came in to rent videos, and so I just really connected.
Navy SEALs.
Really connected right away. And I love Dante, his recurring line, I'm not even supposed to be here today, because it's totally something I would say. And I would totally throw a fit and be upset and feel the victim.
And it's not just that you would work there, it's that we would hang out there while you were working, like me and Josh Griebel, who
you were
and Haken. We would just oh my God, that's
without
perfect.
any of the drugs or anything else.
Griebel would be Silent Bob, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And Pete would be Jay in that situation.
Well, you got to throw Haken in there too, because
Haken would be Jay.
Haken would be the berserker guy.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. Or Pete could be the Chuli's gum guy.
That would work too.
Oh,
cancer merchant.
So, speaking of the Chuli's guy, what I love about that, obviously he gets everybody all crazed at the at Dante for selling cigarettes, and one of his main points is how expensive cigarettes are. But then they all throw their cigarettes at him as they're protesting. It makes absolutely no sense to me.
That's because they're getting rid of their cigarettes, because they know that they're done with them. They're going to chew Chuli's gum now.
No, I understand that, but then all these idiots are not obviously going to stop smoking, as the one guy comes in right after that and says,
just say that's the best part. Is the movie has so many lines like that where it goes the one way, and then the idiot comes in and does exactly that. Pack of cigarettes.
The other thing that kills me about this movie, you talk about Dante's recurring line of "I'm not supposed to be here." It kills me. Everybody opens the door and then asks if they're open.
Well, because
the movie, do they open? If the door is open, obviously they're open. So
that's because the blinds are shut. But he has the big sign.
Yes, I assure you, we're open. Is what the sign said.
One of my other, which watching it again, I'd kind of forgotten, but I laughed every time. I love the recurring shoe polish joke. What smells like shoe polish?
Yep. Right.
It's such a stupid line. But they do it. They stick to that all the way to the end of the movie, and I think that's funny.
One fun fact, Brett,
talking about the blinds.
Yeah, so one kind of fun fact about that, the reason that was written in, so for audience members who may not have watched the movie, how the movie begins is that he gets to the store and it's padlocked shut. There's like a blind, like a metal curtain thing that you pull down,
Like
at
a
night,
garage door.
but he cannot open it. He cannot open it because somebody put gum in the padlock. And so that's why the store looks like it's closed. But the reason that they filmed it like that, or that they had to do it that way, is because the convenience store remained open the entire time, and so they were only able to film at night. The store allowed them to film overnight, and so they had to come up with a reason why it always looks dark out the window behind the counter, and so that's why that was written in. So I thought that was an interesting little tidbit.
Right. There's a reason for everything in there.
That's right.
Another little interesting tidbit. Obviously, there's a lot of swearing in this movie, and everybody's favorite lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, actually got the
Yes.
rating changed from NC-17
Oh yeah.
to R, so that they could get a wider release on it. Because obviously, this movie would have never been seen by hardly anybody. I mean, even less if it had the NC-17 rating.
Which is just crazy when you think about ratings, because it's just language, and today, like, that movie's nothing compared to some of the stuff that's out today.
Right.
So that's crazy. But thank you, Alan Dershowitz, for
His one
helping the guys
contribution.
out.
Well,
The other thing early in the movie that I love, so like you said, Pete, he's not supposed to be there, and he's upset, and so his day is just terrible. But at the very beginning of the movie, after he opens a store, he goes to buy the newspapers, and he takes a newspaper machine and he takes them all out of there to take back to the store after he put his quarter in. And then he finds a quarter in it, and he like smiles and flips it up in the air like, this is my lucky day, everything's going right. And from that moment on, it just goes, nothing goes right after that. So, and you wouldn't notice that the first time you watch it probably, but after watching it again here, it made me chuckle quite a bit.
right. Yeah, the first time you see it, you're not thinking about it. You don't really get the significance of it, and you will have forgotten about it.
Right.
But until you do watch it again, so that is a funny moment.
Well, and the original ending to this movie was that Dante is supposed to get shot
Oh yeah.
at
Yeah.
the end of his day, and that tested so poorly that Kevin Smith went back and took it out. So
That would be a little much.
Yeah, that would have been a horrible ending for it.
But
and because it is.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. It's your everyday crappy day. Everybody has them, but you don't die. You get over them and you move on, and that's what the movie fits. That it's like, okay, he had a bad day, but he's gonna go try to work it out now, and having him die is just kind of over the top. It kind of would ruin the whole plot, I think, because it'd be like, well, this was just a waste of time. And
absolutely, yeah,
so,
right. Yes, so glad that they took that out.
Yeah, but just so many just like little subtle things in the movie that just make you laugh, especially the more and more you watch it. I was telling Brad the other day about the time where Randall kicks the lady out of the video store, and it's just because they have this big argument and he's just being lazy and everything. So he goes, "Hey, you're not allowed to rent here anymore." And she's walking out, and you hear Jay go, "Yeah!"
that is such a great one.
Oh, and what about when he needs to borrow Dante's car to go rent a movie?
Yeah.
He has to go to another
You work
store.
in a video store.
I work in a crappy
shitty video store.
Oh.
I did another insignificant little thing that I noticed, though, is that video store also rents Nintendos too.
Which
I just thought, because I never noticed it, and we rented Nintendos at my convenience store as well, and it was just like, oh, that's fun.
Right.
That it wasn't just movies; there was other stuff there too. My favorite line, well, there's a couple in the video store that I love, but I love. So speaking of, before that woman and him getting a big fight. Before he goes in, there's a woman standing outside the video store waiting to get in. And he comes up and stands by her like he's another customer waiting. And he's like, "Oh, I hate it when I can't rent videos." It just sounds so stupid. And then all of a sudden, he opens the door and lets her in, and she doesn't know what's going on. And the movie she wants to rent is Dental School, which just sounds ridiculous.
It almost reminds me of like all the movie names they come up with in Seinfeld. That would be one that they would come up with.
Yeah.
Oh man, I want to
And
go
then
see Dental School.
one of my other favorite lines in the movie store is, so the woman comes in with her baby and wants Happy Scrappy Hero Pup. And he's on a phone order. And he goes and he orders all these just horrible pornographic movies,
Hardcore porn.
names right in front of her. And then he's like, oh yeah, what's the name of that again? Happy Scrappy Hero Pup. And she goes, she loves it. And he just looks at her and goes, obviously.
Obviously.
One of my favorite Randall lines is when there's a woman in the store and she's holding up movies for him to look at, and she goes, "Are either of these movies any good?" He goes, "I don't know. I don't watch movies." I just absolutely love that.
Oh, that movie sucks. That's when he kicks her out of the store.
Yeah, that's right before she kicks her out.
Oh. I don't appreciate your ruse, ma'am. You're cutting a
My
Trump.
what?
Did anybody else like the homage to Weekend at Bernie's when Caitlin bangs the dead guy in the bathroom?
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember that scene very well.
Did that ever happen at the corner store, Brad?
No, not that I know of. Although we did have a very hidden and pretty gross bathroom in the back, like the sounds of that one would be in their store as well.
Hold on. Let's unpack that a little bit. The sounds of what?
No, that it sounds like the bathroom that they were in was this hidden, like dark back there.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the sounds of the bathroom.
No. And we did not have like a nice public restroom. We had a restroom people could use, but it wasn't like
I remember that bathroom.
A Super America, and like they have a regular bathroom there. So that's what I was saying. It was in our back room behind the freezer, and so.
I think the fact that this movie was such a low budget film made it better in the sense that it made it feel more real. Like if it was a movie that had like big name actors in it or something like that, it was a little more high quality. It wouldn't have related as well to everyday people like us.
Right.
And they're obviously all amateur actors. Some of them went on to do some other things, but none of them are like skilled, great actors. Although I think Randall and Dante do great. I love watching them. But
I was just going to say there's points in the movie though where they're obviously reading lines right off the newspaper.
That's why
Randall's always has a newspaper or a magazine on him.
Yeah.
Obviously just reading lines.
The movie is obviously all dialogue. It's dialogue driven, and Kevin Smith's a great writer, and he's witty. And some of the times that's what makes it great. But when you say it's realistic, there's also some scenes and moments where the dialogue is so over the top. None of these people would talk like that ever. Nobody talks like that with some of the words they use and how quickly they banter back and forth. So I noticed like 2 scenes or so where that kind of like, I mean, it's written and like I like listening to it, but this is not realistic with the way people talk. But most of it fits. And so I do love the dialogue.
That's all right. I forgive them for 90%. That for the rest of it. I love the Star Wars conversation.
That's
one of the ones where the roofer comes in, and it's fantastic.
That's funny though. Yeah, bringing in the third guy.
But here's what I didn't get about that. It's just like I had the same feeling coming away, just exactly like Randall was describing Return of the Jedi. I felt the same thing about the roofer. It's like, why would you refer that job to your friend and then when you know it's a shitty job, and then he got his own friend killed is what I was thinking of. Remember that?
Yes.
No, you're getting too far up here.
I know. I'm overthinking it, but it was like maybe is that like something that they were going for there or not? I don't think it was.
Pete, as a contractor myself, it's always a good idea to try to eliminate your competition.
Good thinking.
Right. Yeah. So it's a business decision. He said his own personal politics come into his business making decisions. Well, he doesn't mind, a little blood on his hands.
Well, there you go. We have a contractor here. This just couldn't work out any better.
Absolutely.
Wow.
The scene that I wrote down, and I didn't write down the dialogue, but the scene that I wrote down where I thought it was really over the top was when Randall and Dante, it was one of the first scenes, maybe it might have been the one where he has the newspaper, and they're talking about Dante's exes and his relationships with girls, and it's just like, come on, this is just a little bit too cute here for these two guys. So,
well, I think that's the scene where he reads in the newspaper that she got engaged.
Oh,
was it Caitlin?
Yeah. Well, that's probably what spurred the whole conversation right there. So
it was at the end of the conversation when he finishes it off by saying, the three of you better work it out. You, Caitlin, and Caitlin's fiance, and then he throws the newspaper down.
You got it. The amateur actors, like I said, I think Randall and Dante are good. And overall, I really like most of the actors. Like, they're fine for what the movie is. They all fit pretty well. The one actor that stood out to me at the end of the movie, that the female detective that comes in, she might be the worst actress I've ever seen in my life.
I got to go back and watch for that.
Oh my God.
So
I didn't pick up.
She's so stiff, and she's trying to be serious because she's a detective. I mean, you can tell what she's trying to do, but it's so bad because the rest of them are pretty easygoing. And like, I love Rick Darris. He's a total douche, but I love how he's just all up in Dante's face and acting all cool, and how he's with all these girls. And, you know, most of them play their role pretty well, but she's the one that stood out.
Yeah.
What I thought was hilarious at the end was that Caitlin is traumatized because of what had happened, that she had just unknowingly had sex with a dead guy, and then throw her in the ambulance with him at the end. Did you notice that?
Yes,
I do now.
They both got to go to the hospital,
cowering, with a blanket around her, and they just shut the door.
Speaking of Caitlin, Dante's so hung up on her. I'm so glad that he's hopefully going to work it out with Veronica, because Veronica is way better for him and a way better girlfriend than this Caitlin. She is so annoying.
Yeah,
they would never last anyway. So
she was not a good
I hope at the
either.
end I'm rooting for him and Veronica to make it, even though he really upset her.
Well, and
you really want to analyze the plot.
You know, she's skilled at one particular point of love making as well. So that's true. Role that being on too. So here's one thing I didn't quite understand. So obviously Dante's upset with Veronica at the 37, but then he finally decides that, it's not that big of a deal because there's a bunch of guys that he doesn't know that they're from college. But when she comes back with the lasagna, it's because her Lit 101 class got canceled. So either she's taken Lit 101 way late in college, because this is like her second college, or
you're really overthinking it too.
Or she sucks dick at a phenomenal rate because she's just got to college. So
I would not have noticed that time
in a row. It was in a row.
Right? Yeah, just
maybe
one after another.
I love the recurring lines. The other one that I like is the bunch of savages in this town.
Yes.
That's always well placed. And then I had three other lines that I wrote down. So one is, and we've been doing this one, me and with Dave on text over and over, but Babyface Gambino, the gangster, the same.
The
gangster. And then the Randall line, Dante says, "You hate people," and then he says, "But I love gatherings." Isn't that ironic? Which is kind of fitting for me too, because I like to be part of like crowds sometimes, even though I hate people and don't want to be there, but I don't want to miss out at the same time. And then the whole ending scene, I hadn't really noticed this line before, but Dante says to Randall, "A stranger in the bathroom just raped Caitlin," and Randall goes kind of under his breath, "She said she did all the work," because he was dead. So those were other than the ones we've already mentioned, those are the other ones I wrote down that really stood out to me this time.
So one of the lines that stuck out to me was one that I always used to say, but I thought I came up with it. And it was when I worked at Home Depot. I would always say, this would be a great job if it wasn't for all the fucking customers.
Yes,
And
that's a
then
great. I would say the same thing.
And then I heard that line in the movie, and I'm like, I've obviously never had an original thought in my life because that was something that I stole from this movie.
That line fits so well, especially a job like Best Buy. I worked in the music department with the CDs. If I could have just sat there and organized CDs all day, greatest job ever. And then those damn customers came in.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that where they show the dumb customers, and she's like, "Would you recommend this movie?" And it's like right under the recommendation sign, and I get comments like that all the time. And and these weirdos that came in. There was a guy that came in once, and he just looked like he was right off the street. And he comes up to me and he goes, "Do you have Cradle of Filth?" And like that's the name of a band apparently, Cradle of Filth. And he said it just like that, and I'm like, "Who are you? And what is Cradle of Filth?"
Surprised you hadn't heard of that one.
No, so I learned about new stuff there too.
We're going to talk about that one on our next episode, on our next podcast, Cradle of Filth.
Cradle of
Yeah.
Filth.
We'll have to go out and find it
In
and
the
listen to
95 episode, maybe. We'll have to look and see when it came out.
it.
Speaking of music, though, one of the other things that I love about this movie is the music. It's got a great soundtrack. So I'm not a huge Alice in Chains fan, but their song Got It Wrong is by far my favorite song of theirs, and they played in this movie at just the right time. And then there's also a couple awesome Minneapolis connections because they play the song Shooting Star, which is a cover of Bad Company, but it's being sung by Golden Smog, which is a Minneapolis band of members of the Jayhawks and some other people, the Soul Asylum. And then the movie ends with the song Can't Even Tell during the credits, which is by Soul Asylum as well. So I love finding those musical connections locally. And then, his next movie, Mallrats, they filmed at Eden Prairie Center. So Kevin Smith clearly had some good connections to
Minnesota vibes,
Minneapolis
right?
too. So
I
I love the music.
The one scene I had an issue with was the hockey scene. As a proud parent of 2 hockey players,
Look at you! You can't even
come
pass.
on. That was a hilarious scene.
That's not how you wrap a hockey stick. I think it was with electrical tape. That's just not going to work. And Randall doesn't even have skates on when he's goaling. Like, come on, you got to at least have the rollerblades on when you're
the Gatorade jokes were pretty funny too at that scene.
Yeah. Here's another fun fact I read about this movie is that there are 9 breaks in the movie, where they break away and show you the black screen and the person's name or whatever. Mm-hmm. There's 9 breaks in the movie, and it's said to represent it's said to be from Dante's Inferno, representing the 9 rings of hell.
I figured when you brought that up, that's where you were headed. That's really cool. And his name is Dante, so
exactly.
I was wondering what those were about.
The same.
I was kind of looking those up.
That's it for me. I'm out of here. I don't have any other. Oh no, I have one last note. I don't know if you have anything else to say. Another thing that I just noticed. This isn't a line, but like some of the little things you notice. So there's a litter box in the store, and there's a scene where the cat's taking a dump, and Dante's busy off with somebody, and there's a guy that's just standing there watching the cat for like a full minute. And the faces he's making as he's watching this cat, he's not like mad. He's just kind of half smiling and just watching it. It's hilarious. It's just a great little bit of, and I really call it physical humor, but it just, no dialogue, just it's just funny.
They actually, to film that, I read about that as well. To film that, they took away that cat's litter box for 24 hours. So basically the cat couldn't go to the bathroom. And so that they figured that they were hoping that they would get the perfect shot. And then they put the litter box right there. And then the cat came running to it just perfectly.
That's a good point, because it wouldn't be that easy to just get that shot. And it looks very much like it's just natural there. So,
do you guys remember the cat's name?
No, I didn't know it had a name.
Annoying Customer.
And I love Randall, but man, he is a dick at some points in that movie. And when he spits the milk on the person, and just he's not very nice. But
well, don't you think
Kevin
Smith wrote all these things in that he would have loved to have done at any point?
I was just gonna say he represents those things that you can't do that you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's what I was thinking. You know how some movies do this? Like when you look back on it, were those other characters actually real, or were they just figments of Dante's, you know, imagination, or his personality?
Wow.
Okay.
Well, now you're really taking it to another level again
I don't
here,
know.
Pete. I don't know where to go.
No comment on that. I thought it was a great thought, but I don't know. It was something that I thought of.
Do you guys have anything else to add about the movie?
I really
No, I don't
don't.
think
I
so.
think we've
Other than that, I really enjoyed going back. I wasn't sure if I was going to love it as much because I haven't watched it in several years, and I loved it. It was. I'm so glad I watched it again. So,
I
is
could
that how you
watch it
felt?
20 times straight. Yeah.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
thinking I might be annoyed or that it just wouldn't hold up as much, but
It holds
thankfully,
up even better.
Yeah,
not the
there's just
case.
so many good lines. Like you say, so many themes that they keep going throughout the whole thing. It's just phenomenal.
So we could go to. We made a list of Kevin Smith favorites, which I don't think any of us are probably like giant Kevin Smith fans, and there's not like there's a huge catalog of things to choose from, but there's enough to go on and just think about after Clerks, what did he do and what did you like? So I have a list of 5. Somebody want to go first?
Yeah, I can.
Do it.
Well, I compare Kevin Smith uh, to oh cripes, no, I'm blanking on his name.
Oh, come
Um,
on, man.
Inglorious Bastards and
Tarantino?
Tarantino for 2 reasons. One, the dialogue that they
That's
write
true.
is always excellent. They're dialogue driven movies. They put little things in, and that's a lot of what you remember from their movies. Secondly, Smith. I mean, all movie directors and producers are movie geeks, but he geeks out on a lot of the things that I geek out on, like Star Wars, um, and comics, and like the
Hmm.
Marvel universe
Yeah.
and things like that. And
I mean, that whole
Tarantino,
scene where they're talking about Return of the Jedi is
yeah,
clearly, him just including what he wants to put in there and making it fit, and
right.
that's a great point.
Well, and Tarantino is a lot in the same way. You can tell he has this love for, you know, like B movies, 70s music, kung fu. You can really see where his um, influences come from. Um, a third thing that I really like is that he has a lot of the same actors in all his movies, kind of like the Farrelly brothers and Adam Sandler. They're bit roles, but they always have
Hmm.
the same people in these movies,
Yeah,
which
it's
I
fun to
which
see
I really like.
Dante pop up in another movie.
Yeah, or Randall, pops up, here or there. So I really enjoy that. Um, one thing I found interesting is that Jason Lee's character of Brody in the other movies, he has a common cousin with Randall. And I don't quite remember the connection, but there's stories in, I think it's Chasing Amy and in Clerks, where they have a cousin that's in common. So
Huh.
he has his own universe that he keeps these
Yeah,
recurring
there is a
characters coming back
universe.
in. And then
And Ben Affleck and Matt Damon join it too, and that's fun
right,
because they're bigger stars by the time well, actually not at first, but
no, not at
later
first,
on.
but yeah,
But and
later
it's
on,
fun.
absolutely.
Some of his smaller movies later, like they'll make an appearance in, and it's fun to see that.
Hmm. And then the last thing I had, I think one of my favorite movies is of his is Dogma. Um, it's just
That's
so
the one.
many.
That was after Good Will Hunting, so they were
Right.
the main stars, and that was like a
Hmm.
big movie with big actors.
Oh, absolutely. And you had Carrie Fisher was in that, and just a
Alanis
whole
Morissette.
yeah.
George Carlin was in it.
George Carlin was the priest, absolutely. But did you know that you cannot get Dogma on any streaming service? You can't order it on a
What?
hard copy because the Weinsteins own it, and so there's no more. They don't have a contract to stream it, and there's no way to get actual hard
Just
copies of
that
it.
one? Because
Really?
they
Just
do
the
talk
one.
about Miramax in a lot of their other movies,
Hmm.
which makes you wonder. Actually, it was Dave who brought this up. How if Kevin Smith was like, connected to any bad stuff or anything back then, because like it's in Jay and Silent Bob. I think they talk about Miramax a lot
Mhm.
because that's the producer. I mean, that's their company
Right.
before the Weinstein stuff came out.
Right. And
Hmm.
now they can't option it or something or move it to another spot in order
Huh.
to release it to streaming or to get a DVD of it or anything like that.
Interesting.
So that was my list of things that I like about Kevin Smith.
Well, that was a nice, interesting list. I just
That
made
was good.
movies. You came
Good
up with something
commentary.
more creative.
Very
That's
educated,
me.
well researched. You got a future in podcasting.
Hopefully, I'm still waiting on Goody's call.
Hey, you next or me?
I'll go next. Basically, I just had a list of movies. I had Clerks, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Mallrats, Dogma, and Zach and Mary Make a Porno, which was
Okay.
good.
So pretty much you have my list. So I had a two that tied for number 5 because there's 4 movies that I really kind of liked, and then it was like I didn't know what else to do. So the movie Jersey Girl from the 2000s actually it was kind of was not like his other movies, and I only saw it once, but I remember distinctly when it was done thinking that was pretty good. That was a pretty sweet movie. Like I really enjoyed it. I couldn't tell you anything about it anymore, but I remember liking it much more than I thought I would. And the other movie that I put tied for 5, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, which probably a lot of people have never even heard of. It just came
I
out like
saw
a
it.
year ago. You saw it?
Yeah, I watched it.
Oh my god, yeah, I watched it on Amazon like a year ago,
Yep.
and it wasn't great, but
No.
I still like I like the characters, and I thought they did a good enough job. It was worth my while. Like it was fine. I like
Right.
watching it. Number 4, then these are all the ones you just said. So I had Zack and Miri Make a Porno. I really thought that was a pretty funny movie, and I
Yeah,
love
that
the
was a good
actors.
movie.
I mean, Elizabeth Banks is always great, and it's a good movie. Dogma was number 3. The interesting thing for me about that movie is the first time I saw that was in the movie theater, and it was me and my wife Kim, and we hadn't been dating for all that long, and we were hanging out with her mom, and we're like going to go to a movie, and the 3 of us went to Dogma, not really knowing. I kind of knew what it would be about, but I didn't know. And her mom is cool, and it was fine. But sitting there was kind of like, I wonder what she thinks, because I was like new on the scene at this time when we went. Number 2, I had Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, which is just stupid, but perfectly stupid. I love that movie. I think it's so funny. And Clerks, number 1. So that was my list.
Excellent.
All right.
And then we had our top 5 movies of the year to wrap it up. I'll just finish mine up since I already was going. So I knew this was a big year for Jim Carrey, but I didn't realize that Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber all came out in the same calendar year. That surprised me.
That's ridiculous.
So Ace Ventura came out in January. The Mask was in the summer, and the Dumb and Dumber came out in December.
In Christmas.
And I always thought there was a bigger gap. And I think I thought The Mask came out like maybe next after them.
I thought it did too.
So that was just talk about a guy breaking onto the scene. So I have one of those movies on my list, but I just threw out as an honorable mention that because I did love Ace Ventura at the time. We rewatched it. It's still funny, but it's not. There's some parts that are a little sketchy. I've actually never really seen The Mask, so I've only tried to watch it a little bit. I mentioned in our last episode the Reality Bite soundtrack. That's a good movie that I put in my honorable mention. Speed was huge. Loved that. The Lion King came out. Hoop Dreams, great documentary. And then another one that's kind of funny, but in December of that year, maybe it was November, I don't know. But remember, I had a hard time adjusting to college. And so Larry was nice and did a lot of stuff with me. We went out shopping one night and we went to a movie and we went and saw Miracle on 34th Street, the new version. But it's a really good Christmas movie. I actually really enjoyed it. And so I thought I should throw that in there because I can totally remember going to that movie with him. Top 5, quick. Number 5, Pulp Fiction. Obviously, great movie. All 5 of these are top-notch great movies. Number 4, Shawshank Redemption. I just watched that with my son recently. Awesome. Number 3, Forrest Gump, which I saw in the movie theater 3 times. Number 2, Clerks. And number 1, maybe not the best movie, but Dumb and Dumber is the one I'll watch over and over above any other one.
Well, that's interesting
because
because
I love Dumb and Dumber. So
your top 5 is all the same top 5 as mine, except just in different orders.
I'm not surprised. What's your order?
Okay, so I'm going to do a couple honorable mentions as well. PCU came out that year.
Oh yeah, I know that one.
Jon Favreau and
Jeremy Piven.
I really like that one. True Lies is just that's one of those movies that when it comes on, I have to sit and watch it till the end. You know, if you're flipping through channels.
I had that one.
I saw that in the theater and I did not like that movie.
Really? Oh,
No.
I think it's just so fun to watch. Natural Born Killers.
The thing about that, before we move on,
Yep.
the thing about that movie is it's making fun of itself, and it knows how ridiculous it is, and that's what's fun about it.
Right.
There's a good chance that I probably had the wrong mindset going into it that night, and I've never watched it again. If I watched
you were
it again,
probably thinking that, oh my
based on
God,
your
that's just too
guys'
ridiculous.
recommendations, I'd probably say, yeah, it's not bad. So
It's meant to be a comedy in that regard.
Right. I had Natural Born Killers also on my honorable mention.
That's a good
Oh,
one.
yeah.
And then a young Natalie Portman in Leon the Professional.
Professional, her first movie.
loved
Yeah,
that movie.
I've never seen that either, but I know about her being in it.
So I am going to mix up Brad's top 5 here and make it my own. 4 of my top 5, along with Brad, they're all in the National Film Registry.
Oh,
And
which one's not? Dumb and Dumber?
Dumb and Dumber is the one that's not.
Why wouldn't it
So
be?
my number 5 is Clerks. Number 4 is Forrest Gump. Number 3 is Pulp Fiction. 2 is Shawshank. And 1 is the funniest movie, minute for minute, ever made, Dumb and Dumber.
So we do have the same number 1. I don't know if it's the funniest minute for minute, but it's certainly equal to Caddyshack or a couple others.
I remember when Dumb and Dumber came out, it was in the theaters over Christmas, and we were at a family Christmas on my mom's side, and I was allowed to take a bunch of the cousins to the movies, and that's the one we went and saw. And I remember being almost in the aisle laughing in the bathroom scene of Dumb and Dumber.
And
here's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
And maybe I don't remember it perfectly, but my memory is I didn't actually think it was that funny and like it that much the first time I saw it. I don't know why. But it's one of those movies that like I watched again later, and every time I watched it, it got better and better to the point where it's number 1 on my list here. Right. But I remember I don't think I thought it was that great at first, which I don't get why, but
there's a lot of movies like that too, though. I mean, especially comedies. It's like
for one to be that big in my history of movies, you'd think that you would have loved it right off the bat. So
yeah, that's true.
What do you got?
What do you got?
Ready for me to go? Okay.
Yeah.
I had Forrest Gump, Pulp Fiction, True Lies, Shawshank Redemption, and Dumb and Dumber is what I had.
4 of the same 5 too.
Basically, yeah, it's all the same. I did. Yeah. Well, again, it's like the same phenomenon that we talked about in the last episode, where I probably forgot about it because we had already discussed it. A couple of honorable mentions that I had listed were 4 Weddings and a Funeral. I remember liking that movie when it
that was a big one.
Watching it a few times.
That kind of took the country. It was the first one of those English movies that kind of the Notting Hill came out, and Love Actually. That was kind of the first one in that whole kind of genre.
Yeah.
I think I watched it once. And I don't love that one, but I remember it being huge though. People loved it. It was a big.
You only saw it once, Brad?
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah, I don't remember it at all.
I remember watching it a few times that year or around that time. And I did have Ace Ventura as honorable mention. But that is my list. Any other closing comments from anybody? 94, would you do it again?
Yes.
Yes, and I'd like to redo that month of September especially. And I think I could do a little bit better.
You could do better, yeah. We would help you.
But even though that's the thing, even though that month sucked, it was part of, the whole process. And who knows, maybe the rest of my college wouldn't have been as great without getting through that first. So
butterfly effect. It only made you stronger.
I guess so.
Okay, well, with that, then we will close the yearbook on 1994. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Pop Yearbook and on Facebook. And we do want to give a special shout out to Preacher Row. They are the band that has allowed us to listen to or to play their music on our episodes. So that is the music you will now be hearing. All right. Thanks, everyone.
See you next time.
See you guys.
Standing on my own 2 feet. No one's here to comfort me. Sorry for what I have done. Sorry that your son is gone. Something's down thinking will be my last. And start to me on my path. I turn it up to you. I'm scared, but there's nothing I can do.